This is a game by King Hunter, so this person doesn't want to be named, which is completely fine. You can stay anonymous, that's completely fine. I don't mind at all. It's a game Tactical Genius against King Hunter, so let's get into it. So we have the French. This is actually a line I'm quite familiar with because I play with the white pieces. Queen c7, this is all theory, a6, bishop g5. And you're asking here, I only had this played against me once, this knight c3 move. What is your view on this move? Just seems like a normal move to me, of course. Threatening knight b5, which you realized, stopping. Maybe a little bit inflexible, because sometimes this knight can also go to f4 or maybe go to g3. I wouldn't play it that early. Anyways, I play a different line anyway against this. Okay, bishop h4. And now, obviously, white wants to go bishop g3, and you're allowing this here, bishop d7. And what was confusing to me is that we're also going to see another game of you, which was pretty much the same position without the knight going to c3 and a6, so those moves excluded, and there you play knight h5. So why not here, right? And if bishop g3, then you can take the bishop, because this is your most valuable minor piece in this position, because it's covering all the weak squares. e5 is very weak, and c5 can also be weak, but especially e5 is a critical square in this position, for which both colors are fighting for. So you want to keep your bishop at all costs. So knight h5 I think should be played here. Absolutely. Alright, so this comes down maybe a little bit to prophylactic thinking. What is my opponent's idea? And here it was very obvious. White plays 1, 2, 3 moves to exchange the bishop. So how can I stop this? Obviously then knight h5 comes to mind. Alright, bishop d7, bishop g3, and here rook ae8, and that's very natural, it's fine. There's another plan though, which I like better here even, is to plan bishop e8 and bring the bishop to h5. We just said the bishop on d6 is your best minor piece in position. The bishop, the light squared bishop, oftentimes in French is the worst minor piece. And here you have a great chance to improve it, bring it to h5, where it's perfectly placed, pinning this knight, and this looks quite nice. And then you can still later on play rook a8, e5, but instead of having the bishop on d7, you already have it active on h5. So this is another plan to consider. Okay, rook a8, ae8, very natural, takes, rook e1, e5, and you're asking, do you think it's the right time to play e5? I believe so. It's a good time to play e5 because you've played all the necessary moves, all your pieces are perfectly placed, but you had an even better move here, which was knight g4. And this is a move you might easily not consider because, well, what is happening here, knight g4, why would I play this? But rook takes f3 is quite a strong threat. Let's say white plays a move like h3, then rook takes f3 nonetheless. And after queen takes f3, there's check, king f1, and now knight takes d4, threatening both the queen as well as taking away the e2 square, threatening mate, and white can resign. Okay, and after knight g4, white already has to be very careful not to lose on the spot. And if now white plays g3, then you can play e5 under even better circumstance, as you have some more pressure on the f file, the knight is more active, and the white knight on f3 is more loose. So probably best for white is to go bishop takes h7. And here you have two attractive options as far as I can tell. Either taking and going for this line, which is pre-forced, and now forcing the queen trade. And this one is hanging after knight f3. This is typical exchange sacrifice, and black has very nice compensation here for the exchange. So this would be good, but there's also another option, which is to just go king h8 and still have this threat. And here h3, rook takes f3, now queen takes f3 would be the same story as we just saw, queen h2. So h takes g4, And now rook takes c3. The rook is kind of in berserk mode. Point is that the bishop is hanging next move. And this looks pretty good for black as well. Okay, so just to, like we just said in the other game, look out for all the possibilities. Alright, e5. Takes, 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 takes. Queen b3. What would you play here as black? Well, I would probably not play knight g4. That's the move you played, because that just leaves you in a position where you have to fight for draw. So these two pawns are kind of under attack. So I would probably think about bishop c6 or bishop e6. And bishop e6 is quite nice because it is preparing knight g4 and is also having this idea of going d4 in some positions. And knight g4 is a very strong threat. Your queen is perfectly placed and white cannot take on b7. After knight g4 he's just getting crushed. Okay, so h3 is necessary, and after d4 white still has this move bishop c4, but after rook e8 it's just black who's better here. Let's say bishop takes e6, and you have a choice here. I think you could also take the rook, but I like queen takes e6, and this endgame looks pretty nice actually. So this looks quite nice for black. And after knight g4 you have to be very careful. I mean, you give this pawn and now you're down a pawn. The question is what do you do now? And you're asking me, would you have played rook takes f2 here? And maybe I would have, but before that I would need to make very sure that I'm not losing, because it's quite tricky here. Rook takes f2 is the right move. It is. But it is tricky. I mean, first you have to look at h3. Because if you move the knight, you lose the rook. So you have to go rook d2. And then after bishop c4, there are all kinds of double checks, but just knight e5 works actually, and nothing bad is happening. Okay, so we can figure this out. Bishop c4 first is a bigger issue, because white has now as well this threat, as well as h3 again. And here you go astray, unfortunately. You play king f8 and then you haven't dealt with this second threat of h3. So there are two ways to play here, but they both require a lot of calculation. Probably rook d2 is the easier one. The point is you're protecting the bishop. So, and if knight f6, just king f8. Knight takes, rook takes, bishop e6, rook d4, everything protected. But after rook f1, now there's the threat of knight e7 double check and checkmate on f8. Now you need to find h5 to protect this knight as well on g4 and give the king some space. So not easy. And that's what I was saying. Black has to be precise here, and that's just a situation you don't need to get into in the first place if you don't play knight g4. The other move here, besides rook d2, which is holding, is bishop e6. But yeah, very scary. Again, rook e1 makes a lot of sense, just hitting the bishop. And then king f7, now h3, and rook d2, and it's kind of amazing that this is still working for black. Knight b6, attacking the bishop, bishop takes, knight takes, attacking the rook. If rook c2 now, there's knight a3, and then white cannot attack the knight again, he's losing the knight on g4. But rook d4 it's just barely working out, right? Knight a5, knight f6, knight takes b7, rook d2, and black should have enough counterplay here to hold himself. But yeah, those are computer variations. So very tricky, and I think the problem was here that you misevaluated this maybe when you played knight g4 here. This is where it all went wrong in my opinion, because after that it's easy to make a mistake, but here it wasn't necessary to allow all of this by either going bishop e6 or bishop c6, just protecting this pawn, and you're completely fine. All right, let's see the game. King f8, h3. So you're losing a piece, but at least you get 2 pawns. And here, after g6, apparently, no, hold on. I think here you resigned. And this is too early. This is clearly too early. We're just seeing this in the Caruana Aronian game, which I'm actually curious to check out for a moment. Wow. Wow. It looks like Aronia is really not going to win. In fact, he's worse. How crazy is that? Okay, just getting a little bit sidetracked looking at the game. Caruana Aronian, where Aronia was up a piece. And here, white is also up a piece, but there's not a lot of pawns left. So you have drawing chance. You can play g6. And white has to show how he's going to win this. I mean, there have been a lot of games where people haven't won those kind of positions. It happens all the time. So just fight on. Fight on. That's important. Okay. Yeah, so I think it was too early resignation there. All right. That is crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. It shows you that we're all just humans. Looking at the Aronian game, he spent 50 minutes in this one position and still didn't find the right way to play. It is a very difficult game after all. Kevin is asking, do we know the ratings of the players and the fast or slow time control? No, I don't know either, really. I don't know. All right. Let's get back. All right, so we have this game. And what is the big takeaway here? I think the opening was fine. I mean, there are some positional issues, maybe keep the dark squared bishop, okay? But we know that because we'll see another game of yours where you did right. And then this idea of bringing the bishop over to h5, which you'll surely remember for future. And then knight g4. Once there was the right time to play before e5, was quite dangerous. So this is just looking for other options. You saw a good move, e5, look natural, look good, but look for even better ones, right? Always keep your mind open. I mean, this is something where I also struggle. I just miss moves all the time, my own moves or opponent's moves, and just at least seeing them, even if it's just briefly, just seeing them, realizing they're there, and then you can just disregard them or not, okay? And then in the end, it really came down. You had to really dig yourself in and really calculate clearly, and that was not so easy. And okay, you made a mistake there and lost. And then keep on fighting, like I said. That's definitely very important. Okay, now let's see another game of you, and once again